The day had grown quiet by the time I reached the farthest line of dunes. A soft stillness lay over the desert. Not heavy, not lonely. Just peaceful, as if the earth itself was taking a deep breath. I stood beneath the wide sky and felt the vastness settle into me. For the first time in a long while, the silence did not echo with memories of pain. It felt like a friend, like a teacher, like a truth I had finally grown ready to hear. The wind swept gently across the sand, carrying with it the familiar scent of distance, that mixture of sun, dust, and quiet wisdom you can only find in places untouched by noise. I walked slowly, not because I was tired, but because I wanted to feel every moment of this new chapter unfolding inside me. My heart no longer raced with longing. It beat with clarity, with direction, with a softness that had once been buried under loss. I reached a lone acacia tree standing against the horizon, a solitary survivor, its branches shaped by time and wind. It reminded me of my own journey, tested by storms, reshaped by grief, but still standing. I sat beneath its shade, letting its presence steady me. Memories rose gently, but none carried the sting they once did. I thought of the laughter we shared, the dreams that once felt unbreakable, the shadows of moments that shaped me, even as they slipped away. But today, none of those memories pulled me backward. They simply existed, soft, distant, like pages of a story that had ended, but would always matter. I drew a line in the sand with my fingertips, a simple curve, a quiet symbol of separation, not between me and you, but between who I was then and who I have become now. I whispered to the desert, to the wind, to whatever still lingered unseen. Some hearts we meet to love, some hearts we meet to learn. The words left me calmly, as if they had been waiting to be spoken. A warm breeze moved across the dunes, lifting grains of sand into small spirals of gold. They danced for a moment, then settled again, like thoughts rising and falling in a healing mind. I stood and began walking once more. Each step felt grounded, each breath filled with purpose. The horizon no longer felt like a place of searching, but a place of arrival. Halfway up a sloping dune, I paused and looked back. The footprints behind me drew a long, winding line, a map of everything I had faced, felt, surrendered. I smiled softly, because even the deepest wounds had led me here, to this strength, this clarity, this peace. The sky began to shift again as afternoon approached, painting soft streaks of orange and cream across the open air. It felt like a masterpiece, created just for those who survived the heaviest storms. I placed my hand on my chest and felt the quiet rhythm of acceptance, steady, whole, undemanding. The desert whispered its approval. So I spoke one final truth, a truth that rose from the deepest part of me. I do not walk in your shadow anymore. I walk in my own light. The sun was beginning to lean toward the west, painting the desert in tones of copper and honey. The day was no longer young, yet it held a gentle warmth, the kind of warmth that comes after a long journey of searching and an even longer journey of understanding. I walked with calm steps, feeling the sand shift under my feet, soft and familiar, like an old friend who has watched my heart break, heal, and rise again. There was a silence in the air, but not the silence of emptiness. It was the silence of peace, a peace I had earned grain by grain, moment by moment, across countless dunes and countless realizations. As I moved forward, my shadow stretched long behind me, but it no longer felt like something that followed. It felt like something that supported me A reminder of all the versions of myself I had walked through to reach this one. I reached a wide, flat plain, where the dunes opened like a quiet doorway into another part of the desert. The wind brushed gently across the sand, tracing patterns that looked like messages from the earth itself. I paused, letting the breeze wrap around me like a soft cloak. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. The air entered my lungs without the weight it once carried. There was no ache in the breath, no tremble in my chest. Just life, simple, pure, present, I whispered to myself, barely audible over the wind. This is what healing feels like. Not a sudden moment, not a grand revelation, just a quiet knowing that the heart has finally stopped bleeding and has begun instead to bloom. I sat on a gentle rise in the sand, watching the sky deepen into gold. A few clouds drifted lazily above, their edges glowing with a soft radiance. They reminded me of how emotions move. Slow, changing, unpredictable, yet beautiful. I thought of the past, of the love I once held so tightly that it nearly consumed me. But now, the memory was soft, like a story read many times, until the pages become warm with understanding. I no longer longed for your return, not because I stopped caring, but because I started caring for myself in a way I never had before. You were a lesson, a chapter, a journey within the journey. But I had outgrown the need for your echo to guide my steps. I stood again, feeling a new strength settle into my bones. The desert in front of me looked vast, open, welcoming. Not a place of searching, but a place of becoming. A falcon flew overhead, its wings catching the last beams of sunlight. It moved with clarity, with purpose, with a quiet command of the sky. I watched it until it disappeared into the warming colors of dusk, and in its flight, I saw my own reflection, not where I was, but where I was ready to go. The wind softened again, curling gently around my shoulders, as though pushing me forward. I whispered into the fading light, I am no longer held by yesterday. I am carried by tomorrow. The desert embraced those words, pulling them into its eternal quiet. I took one last look at the casting long, sweeping shadows that moved like gentle waves. The desert glowed with a warm amber shine, a fire that did not burn, but whispered truth to anyone brave enough to listen. I walked slowly, letting the world unfold around me in silence. Every step felt deliberate, as though the earth itself wanted me to feel each moment fully. Not rushing, not looking back, simply being present with who I had become. There was a calmness in the air that I had never known before. Perhaps it had always been here, but I had been too lost in my own storms to feel it. The wind shifted softly, carrying the smallest echo of old memories. But unlike before, those memories did not tighten around my heart. They simply brushed by, light as dust on the fingertips, reminding me that what once felt heavy could now pass without pain. I climbed a dune that curved high above the valley. It felt like climbing into another version of myself. One stronger, wiser, lighter. At the top, the world stretched out before me in endless lines of gold, a sea of silence, a kingdom of time, a place where hearts come to heal, even when they don't know how. I let the view settle inside me. This desert had carried my grief, absorbed my tears, held my unspoken prayers, and now it was holding my rebirth. I closed my eyes and whispered softly, the hardest journey is not across the dunes. It is across the heart. The wind caught my words and carried them into the vastness, where they dissolved into the horizon, like a promise fulfilled. As I stood there, I realized something that had taken me A long time to understand. I was no longer waiting, not for you, not for answers, not for closure, not for the past to undo itself. I was simply living, finally living, and that understanding felt like a sunrise inside my chest. I walked down the dune toward a flat stretch of desert, where the sand shimmered in the sunlight, like scattered pearls. My footsteps left clear prints, evidence that I was moving forward, with purpose, not uncertainty. Once I had walked these lands, with a heart full of longing for someone who was gone. But now, I walked with a heart full of belonging to myself. I sat down on the warm sand and watched a lone falcon circle the sky. Its wings cut through the air with effortless grace. It moved where it wished, unbound, unafraid. I felt a quiet kinship with that bird, as though both of us had learned to rise after losing what we held too tightly. The desert around me seemed to pulse with life. Not loud, not obvious, but steady. The kind of life that teaches you to trust again. I placed my palm on the sand and whispered the truth I had carried too long without speaking. I am enough, even when I walk alone. The desert did not respond with sound, but with a feeling, warmth beneath my hand, a stillness in the air, a soft certainty in my breath, a peace that only comes when the heart has finally chosen itself. I stood again, letting the breeze lift the hair fro